Well, hello, and thanks for tuning in to this Selling Travel TV presentation. We're going to be talking about Nova Scotia, one of the Atlantic Canada provinces. Often wild, rugged and dramatic, it's a region that is just made for self-exploration, whether that's by car, RV vehicle, bike, or, weather permitting, sea kayak even. Attractions there include great seafood, whale watching, experiencing some of the world's highest tides, and one of the most scenic drives you will find anywhere in the world. Here to tell us about all of these and much more is Patricia Pardy, who's the Market Development Specialist for Tourism Nova Scotia. Hi Patricia, thanks for being on Selling Travel TV.
Thank you, Steve, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And where are you talking to us from today?
I'm talking to you from actually Windsor, Nova Scotia, a small little community about 15 minutes from Wolfville in the Annapolis Valley.
Right. Well, let's start with some basic geography. From the UK, Nova Scotia is one of the shortest flights you can take across the Atlantic, but position it for us on a map of Canada.
So on a map of Canada, if you were to look from west to east, we are the almost furthest east. Newfoundland and Labrador is the furthest, and then we would be next to them. But we are attached to the mainland of Canada, and our province is about the size of Scotland, I guess, in terms of square footage wise, you could say.
Okay.
So you would pretty much in line with, we're a little bit past, I guess, New York City in terms of eastward, in terms of Boston and that area.
And how well served are you by airlines flying out of the UK right now?
So currently, Air Canada have us on their roster for 2021 from Heathrow to Halifax. And WestJet actually offer direct flights from also Gatwick, Glasgow, and currently Dublin as well are on their calendars for 2021. And typically those flights are about 6 hours in duration.
So that is a short crossing.
It is for you, yes. for a long haul destination, it is definitely a short crossing. One I've done many times, and it does go very quick.
Most people will fly first into Halifax. That's a compact city that I know stretches back from the waterfront. But what is there in Halifax that will keep visitors there for a couple of days or so?
Well, Halifax itself, which I love, the city itself is about 400,000 people. So it's actually a very walkable, pleasant city to enjoy in terms of there's a Halifax waterfront, which has about nearly 2.5 miles of a boardwalk that goes along the entire waterfront where you can walk. There's shops, museums, restaurants, pubs. You can hop on a ferry over to Dartmouth and really get a great bird's eye view of the actual whole harbor. There is also harbor boat tours that you can take, sea kayaking, bikes you can rent along the waterfront. So that's definitely one of the nice parts about Halifax. It's very walkable, pleasant, and being only about 400,000 people in Halifax is very uncrowded. So, and it's a very safe, walkable destination. But some of the other great sites for, at least 2 days, we do recommend for people to stay in Halifax City. In terms of the Halifax Citadel National Historic Site, it's on a large hill overlooking the city, and it was actually built back in when the city was first founded in 1749. It was a fort put up there to actually defend the city. There was no battles ever fought there, but it was actually built. And at first there was a wooden construction there, but now the original construction, the present Citadel Fort, has been there since 1856, and it was named actually Fort George after Britain's King George II. That's how it was named. And that's a great place to go and see soldiers in period costume from the 1700s to learn about how they were to defend the city, which never they had to do. But in terms of there's interpretive experiences, noonday gun, ghost tours, be a soldier for a day. So it's a great little spot. There's also the Canada Museum of Immigration at Pier 21. So in terms you step into the past and learn about how immigrants came here from between 1928 to 1971, sorry. And it's kind of like our Staten Island, I guess, of New York City. That's another spot you can see. And some other spots that I would definitely recommend for viewing is our Maritime Museum of the Atlantic, where you can see in terms of the artifacts from the Titanic. learn about the Halifax explosion that happened in December 1917. The Seaport Farmers Market is a great place to get some fresh produce, vegetables, local artisans, crafts, and paintings and things like that as well, because they have over 250 vendors. On the weekends, most popular. And actually, that is actually the longest continuing running farmers market in North America for us. Yeah, and there's also like brewery tours at Alexander Keith's Brewery and public gardens, so lots to explore.
You talked about the waterfront. That's an area that's been under development over the last couple of years, isn't it? There's a lot going on down there.
There is. There's a new development there, the Queen's Mark, and that actually Queen's Mark will have, it's a now residential with a commercial properties and a new boutique hotel called the Mur that will be opening next summer. It'll be a 5-star boutique hotel with about 110 rooms. And it'll have 12 restaurants on site, a beautiful spa on there as well, a private gallery for the actual people that are staying there. So that Queen's Mark will be an actual little destination in itself when that opens next year. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful landmark here in downtown Halifax.
Well, leaving Halifax, I know that the spectacular scenery starts almost as soon as you leave the city boundaries. And there are lots of some great day trips you can do. If you want to base yourself in Halifax and go out and do some things for the day and come back to Halifax, there's plenty of options. Can you tell us some of these and perhaps one or two of your own favourites?
Definitely. I would say in terms of for day trips from Halifax, you can go actually along the southern shore. So along the Lighthouse route, you can visit Peggy's Cove. Peggy's Cove is very world famous. I think a lot of people have seen images. There's one right here behind me, as you can see. It's actually why it's so unique and actually sits on smooth granite rocks. The lighthouse is just so majestic, the waves crashing along the ocean. There's some hiking trails along there, restaurants, some quaint little shops. And it's an actual little working fishing village. So it's great for just walking around there and exploring. In terms of then drive out along the southern shore and follow along the coastline to Chester. You can go kayaking there, stop for a nice little coffee. Along Mahone Bay is another quaint little village where there's some quaint shops. It really just in terms of there's small quaint villages that you can just walk along, like I said, and not crowded, nice open spaces. But then definitely head it down to Old Town Lunenburg, which is a World Heritage Site or UNESCO Heritage Site. So it's the best surviving town of a British colonial town actually in North America. That's why it's got the UNESCO designation. There you can actually visit like the Blue Nose Schooner. It's there actually moored in the port, and you can also do a walking tours, see the colorful homes there. And then also a lot of sandy beaches. So that's the southern shore that I definitely love there. Some of my favorite places is like the sandy beaches down along the Aspetuggin Peninsula, like Bayswater Beach. Beautiful, a little out of the way, but worth the drive, and just nobody down there when you get there. Wide open space, and you have almost a beach. Like you have so much room around you. It's incredible. Then another day trip is great to go up to Wolfville and the Annapolis Valley. Mm-hmm. And my favorite is to head up there and to visit the wineries, of course. There's over 20 wineries. A lot of people don't realize there's wineries in Nova Scotia, but we are very much on latitude with France. So we have the great growing climate and the fertile soil to grow grapes. And we have over, like I said, 20 wineries, many of them with little outdoor eateries. You can sit out on the patio and overlook the valley. So it's just stunning and breathtaking views. In terms of the Grand Pre UNESCO World Heritage Site is also there. So you can actually learn about the dike lands and how back in actually the 1600s, the French colonists actually made dikes to keep the water flow in and out so it wouldn't flood their agricultural lands. Hall's Harbor Lobster Pound is one of my favorites, so unique places to go. You can go and learn about lobsters and actually pick a fresh lobster right out of the tank that would have been brought in that day and have a fresh lobster right there on the ocean. So right there next to the ocean.
I think the wine growing aspect is, as you say, is a surprise for many people. When yes. I was sitting in Luckett Vineyards, which I think is in the Gaspereau Valley, you could have been looking down at rows of vines in France or South Africa. It was beautiful up there.
Yeah, it's like it's a very unique in terms of the how many growers are actually here now, and it just keeps expanding every year. We have more and more wineries opening all the time, and we have, which is, if you come here, we have our own appellation wine called Tidal Bay, and it's a white wine which is very unique to the region, and it has to go through a very highly intense certification process to become a Tidal Bay wine, but it's perfectly paired with like seafood, and that's one of the criteria that it would be a good wine to have with seafood, with our lobster and scallops and mussels, and yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the rest of the province now. And from
Yeah,
Halifax, you can either head north up the fabulous Cabot Trail, or south heading down to the southern tip to Yarmouth, where then you can go up to Digby, I believe, for a ferry crossing to one of Atlantic Canada's other provinces, New Brunswick. So for
that's right.
people who don't know the province at all, how should they put a touring driving itinerary together? There are two distinct options there. I've just mentioned. Is that the way to do it?
Well, it depends on how much time, of course, you have, but if you have about 2 weeks, you can definitely see around the entire almost province. But if you want to also explore neighboring provinces of New Brunswick or Prince Edward Island, which we definitely do recommend, then there you can actually go along the southern shore. So you can head down the southern tip towards Yarmouth. As I mentioned there, you pass by Peggy's Cove, Mahone Bay, and Lunenburg, we've already spoke about. Then you keep on going to places like Barrington, where you can actually pop in. So you really kind of hug along the coastline of this actual route, which is nice. Or we also have a highway too, but in terms of hugging along the coastlines, where you really get to pop in and see all the actual unique places, the museums, the shops, and the beaches. In Barrington, for example, you can go there and become like a lumberjack experience and head on down to Shag Harbor, where we have a UFO center. So actually about October 4th, 1967 is where you can decide for yourself if a UFO landed actually in Nova Scotia. But head down then towards, go along the southern tip down towards Yarmouth area. And that's where the Cape Fortune Lighthouse is. You'll see a lot of our images of that. An actual movie was just shot there not long ago in 2018, William Dafoe, called The Lighthouse. So that was actually how it became a little bit more popular in the past 2 years. There's fishery museums down there as well. Living Wharves is a hands-on experience where you can learn how to fish like a lobster, how lobster fishermen actually do their trade. So that's along the southern tip to Yarmouth, and then you can continue on up towards Digby as well. And getting up towards Digby is where actually the ferry would lead you then into New Brunswick. And in terms of Digby, that is where you can actually, in terms of experience, the whale watching would definitely be one of the sites there for Digby. So if you come along Digby, and then you can continue on to Wolfville, and you can either take the Digby ferry and go into New Brunswick that way if you wish. There is a short ferry there. Or you can continue on to Annapolis Royal and the Valley to Wolfville and head on up then through Truro and go up to New Brunswick that way and towards PEI that way as well. So that's kind of the western part of the province.
Okay. And Nova Scotia, of course, means New Scotland, and in certain parts of the province, that Scottish heritage is still very present, isn't it?
It is, very much so. Yes, we have a little bit of everything from Irish to Scottish to English to French. We have a diverse culture here, but Pictou actually is where the first wave of Scottish settlers did come and arrived on this sailing ship called the Hector. And it kind of gave the claim as the birthplace of New Scotland. So of course, Nova Scotia is known as New Scotland. There you can actually tour a replica of the ship, the Hector Quay, that came there. And it's again another beautiful little walking town where you can walk around. Every summer they have the Pictou Lobster Carnival, and there's actually a lobster museum there as well, so you can go learn about lobsters. There's a touch tank there. You can go and touch them and see, learn more about them and see them in their development of when they're really small. They're very, very tiny when they first develop, and how they grow. And nearby in Antigonish too, we have the Highland Games actually. So they are actually known as the oldest continuing Highland Games outside of Scotland. We host them here every summer here in Nova Scotia.
I think you've got a couple of whiskey distilleries up there too, haven't you?
We do, yes, we do, up in going towards Cape Breton Island, and that's from Pictou. If you were driving, that's heading more than our eastern side, and then heading up towards Cape Breton, there is the Glenora Distillery. There is another distillery along Pictou as well. There's several distilleries and craft breweries all throughout Nova Scotia. They're just dotting all over the place. But then, of course, you would head up towards Cape Breton Island from Pictou. And that's in terms of where you actually learn about Cape Breton Island is an island. It's attached by a causeway. It's a beautiful island. There's something there for everyone. And actually, this year, once again, it was named the #1 island in the Americas by Condé Nast Traveler for 3 years in a row. So definitely the island has a lot to offer in terms of world-class golf, hiking, fishing, camping, but lots of heritage there as well. You can go culture if you like music. You can, in terms of, go to the Gaelic College and learn about the music and do some toe tapping and dancing there as well. But definitely the gem of Cape Breton Island would be the Cabot Trail. Mm-hmm. And the Cabot Trail is about 186 miles of a winding loop that hugs along the coastline. Beautiful trail in terms of majestic, especially in the fall when the fall leaves change color and you get those crimson reds and golden yellows and the oranges. So it's a beautiful, beautiful trail to drive. And there we actually have one of our most popular Skyline Trail where you can actually walk it. It's about a 3-hour at a good pace, a nice walking pace, about a 3-hour hike out and back, return. And there you hike up to the Skyline Trail and you can see in terms of just the beautiful coastline, and it's definitely worth it. And you might even spot some wildlife like a moose, maybe even a black bear. It's possible, has been seen. But definitely, and then also on Cape Breton Island we have like the Alexander Graham Bell Museum where you can learn about his inventions. Invented the telephone, but many other inventions. And the Fortress of Louisbourg is also another key site in Cape Breton Island where you learn about French colonial life. And there's a living actually in terms of national park there with all the staff in period costumes and that as well. So lots to do in Cape Breton Island.
I mentioned the Bay of Fundy at the start, which is the world's highest tides. Mm-hmm. Where can you see this, and what's the visitor experience like there?
The Bay of Fundy is actually, it is a natural phenomenon. There's actually over 160 billion tons of water flows in and out of the Bay of Fundy every day, twice a day actually, creating the highest tides in the world. And it's actually caught between, it's centered between the Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. So we actually share the Bay of Fundy, more towards the western side of the province. This is where you can go down to the Bay of Fundy. And the nice thing about the Bay of Fundy is you can experience it in many different ways. One, around Digby, as I mentioned, you can go whale watching there. And that's where, because there's so much great seafood for the whales, it tracks about 12 species of different whales there. And the most one that a lot of people love to see is the humpback whale. And because that one definitely is a creature that loves to do breaching and loves to show off, I think, sometimes too. So the humpback whale is where you can see it there, as well as Cape Breton Island. But you can actually experience the Bay of Fundy. You can actually walk the ocean floor at Burnt Coat Head Park. And that's along that western tip of our province as well. But you actually, when the tide is low tide, you have about a 3-hour window where you can walk out on the ocean floor and you can experience sea life in the actual floor. There's guided hikes, tours there as well, and and then you could stay there a couple hours later and see that 48 feet the tide might rise that day, right up to the rocks or where you just once stood on the ocean floor. So yeah. And we even have dining on the ocean floor experience that's been happening there for a few years. It does sell out within about 2 hours of it being posted. But, you can go down and actually, if you're brave, you can have a little picnic, but you have to take everything with you when you head back out.
When is the best time for whale watching? When is the best time of the year?
The best time of year, I would say, is really July, August, early September, when you would see in terms of more the humpback whale coming through. They do start around May, but you'll see more like minkies and different whales. But in terms of if you really want to see the humpback, especially, I would suggest around July, August, early September.
And Nova Scotia, of course, as with the other provinces in Canada, have a rich First Nations culture and history. If visitors want to delve into some of this and learn a little bit more about First Nations in the province, what experiences can they do and where can they go?
There's actually different, in terms of Kejimkujik Park is where you can actually go and explore in terms of the Mi'kmaq community. It's our First Nations community, over 13,000 years of history. In terms of in Kejimkujik Park, you can actually canoe their waterways that they traversed many years ago. And you can see the petroglyphs. So it's actually stone carvings that they left in the rocks there as well. So there's a really good interpretive site right at Kejimkujik National Park and National Historic Site. Is definitely one of the spots I would recommend. And as well, there is in Waikimo in Cape Breton Island, there is some different actually spots around Cape Breton Island that you can go, and there's some interpretive and hands-on actual Mi'kmaq, get up close with the Mi'kmaq community, learn about their dancing, their smudging ceremonies, as well as how they did trappings and how they lived on the land for many years. So there's various places actually throughout Nova Scotia where you can learn about our Mi'kmaq culture.
Seafood. Let's talk about seafood. You have fabulous seafood throughout the province.
We do.
I've never had so many lobster rolls in 1 week when I was there. It was marvelous.
You can have lobster macaroni and cheese, lobster rolls, you can have lobster beer even now. But yes, I think there's so many different ways that lobster has been crafted by our local chefs. It's incredible. We actually do have also a seafood trail, so you can actually follow along Nova Scotia and get a stamp of where you visit in terms of on our different chowder trail. But lobster is actually available all year round. And the reason for that is we actually have fish different seasons all year round, different parts of Nova Scotia. So different places will have their lobster license, but you can get fresh seafood right out of the ocean every day here, pretty much in Nova Scotia. We also have the Digby scallops. So they are just beautiful, big, fresh scallops from the ocean. Oysters, of course, we have a lot of them, as well as mussels. So a lot of abundant seafood here in Nova Scotia.
Oh, great. You provided us with a lot of information about the province. But for agents who want to find out a bit more, or to sort of hear more about what you've just talked about now, you've just launched a new training program, haven't you, for travel agents?
We do. We have a new online training program that actually, in terms of access marketing, our in-market rep in the UK, of course, will actually help guide, and we can send that link on. So it definitely gives you a nice, well-rounded view of Nova Scotia. It's a certificate program that you can learn all about the various points. We have 7 different touring regions around Nova Scotia, and our online training takes you through those 7 different regions. You can learn a little bit more, see some fantastic pictures and videos in there as well.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for joining us, Patricia, and enlightening us on a destination that I know from first-hand experience should be on every traveller's must list.
Thank you very much. Well, we welcome everybody to come to Nova Scotia when it's safe to do so, and we welcome you to come to our wide open spaces and enjoy our warm hospitality, and we just can't wait to have you here again. Look forward to it.
Thank you very much.